Hello, register audience. Today we are reimagining education IT. It's something that is a problem for a lot of people who are involved in it. Well, let's try and solve that problem. Let's try and make it simpler and better. Well, I'm not going to be doing that. Frank's going to be doing all the hard work. Hello, Frank.
Hey, how's it going, Tim?
Good, thanks. And you?
Not bad, not bad. Cold and snowy, but hey, it's warm in here.
It's warm. It's always warm inside a register webinar. Frank, tell me what you do at Scale Computing.
I am the lead solutions architect for Scale Computing. I've been here probably about 11 years, and prior to that, I was IT admin for probably 20 some years before that.
Oh, so you know all the pain of having to struggle with the sorts of problems we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, exactly. I've been in the trenches for quite some time there.
Yeah. Well, listen, we are going to help some of our listeners who are some of our audience who are in those trenches as well in the IT sector at the moment. So we're going to be talking about the problems of having to provide educational IT and the platform that Scale Computing provides and how that addresses those problems, hopefully solves them.
Mhm.
Frank's promised us a live demo, and so let's see what goes on there as well. First of all, Frank, tell me a little bit more about Scale Computing, what you do and how you do it.
Yeah, so Scale Computing, we've been in the industry since 2008. We actually started as just a nice SCSI storage company, right? Back in the early 2000s, everybody had iSCSI storage.
Mhm.
But we had the idea of saying, hey, let's consolidate what it takes to do a highly available virtualization stack. And so we began looking at ways as, hey, how can we embed the hypervisor right into the storage itself, right? And so started we launched that product in 2012. We're actually headquartered here in the Midwest in Indianapolis. We've got offices all around the globe, so we are a global company. And we serve anybody and everybody from the small mom and pop shops all the way up to the brand names that you know and recognize today. So we're not a new flash in the pan. We've been around for quite some time there.
And when you're dealing with schools, it's more at that mom and pop end of it, isn't it, rather than the global enterprise end?
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of times they'll have the same needs as some of those enterprises, right? I
Mhm.
mean, most IT folks would say, "Hey, I want the same stuff that the Fortune 500s have, but my purse, my pocketbook just can't carry that weight there."
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to be secure and available and to be able to handle the management problems that they've got.
Mhm.
They just manifest in slightly different ways,
Yep.
don't they? Tell me a little bit about how your approach to how we manage these things.
Yep. So first of all, the main takeaway of what we do is what we call hyperconvergence. We're one of the first in this realm, right? We're
Mm,
kind of ones that created that buzzword, if you will. But what we wanted to do was take all the different components that you would typically have in the infrastructure and compress it all together more into an appliance model, if you
mm,
will. So right now, a lot of folks, in the IT shops, in the schools, they may have a rack of gear like you see on the left-hand side here, where it's, hey, I've got a storage array or a NAS of some kind, and I've connected it to several host servers. And then, of course, we got to figure out the virtualization piece, right? It's, hey, am I going to, frustrate myself trying to figure out Hyper-V, or am I going to pay the big bucks and try to do the VMware route, if you will, right?
mhm,
And so we wanted to reduce all of that complexity. Let's get rid of all the overhead costs there, which is very big for school districts nowadays. Budgeting is always kind of main concern. We wanted to kind of make it a one-stop shop, right? One vendor I have to deal with for my entire infrastructure instead of different support contracts, different numbers I call. So we created that true appliance where it's all right there in one box and it's easy to consume, easy to manage.
But one of the things about that traditional approach that you got on the left there is a lot of people will have inherited bits and pieces
Yeah.
of it, won't they? And not be entirely sure about exactly what's plugged into what or how it's working.
Oh yeah, yeah. There was for a while when I was a consultant, I'd come into places and they don't even know what all the passwords are because the
Yeah.
previous generation of staff is done and gone and it's never documented, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of stress in that. And the sort of things that tend to go wrong when you have that traditional approach.
Yep.
Or what are, yeah, what are these, what are the problems that we're seeing every day here?
Yep. So one is, like I mentioned, there's a lot of unknowns having old gear, especially when, hey, we bought the sand 2 years ago, but the servers are 8 years old, and so it feels like you're always having to replace or update something in that stack, right?
Hmm.
But the big thing that I guess the elephant in the room, if you will, that's been going on, and it really impacted a lot of the small and mid-sized organizations, especially the schools, was that pricing increase when it came to the software for the
Yeah.
virtualization, right?
Yes.
And so people that have looked at Microsoft's Hyper-V, we don't know which direction it's going. Is it going to be more cloud-based? Can I have on-prem? But if people that wanted to stick with VMware, all of a sudden they've got a 400, 500% increase in their licensing fees, a lot of people are looking away from that. And the slide I put up here, I mean, this is a survey that was done well before the Broadcom merger piece here, and people were getting kind of sick and tired of it even before then, and this just kind of pushed them over the edge a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, these are huge numbers if you are running on a tight budget, aren't they? When we're
Mhm.
talking about licensing, these are huge costs that can blow everything else just out the water.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And especially when, for a school, your main thing is to deliver education to kids, right? And so having a lot of forward facing technology is kind of what's prominent. All this stuff in the background, this infrastructure stuff, a lot of times it's that, hey, hey, if I don't see it, I don't know about it, I don't want to spend money on it, right? But most,
Mhm.
some folks don't know, administrative and school boards don't know that, hey, this is what everything depends on.
Yeah. On the other hand, you do really have to produce something that holds together pretty well. You can't be imposing a huge maintenance overhead on either yourself or whoever comes after you.
Yep, exactly. Yep. And so, one thing we've done to kind of ease this transition is to not have a one size fits all solution, right?
Hmm.
There's a lot of products out there that are, hey, this is our product X, like it or hate it, that's kind of what it is. And so we've created different families of products to meet exactly what those school districts need. If we're talking some of these huge consolidated school districts, hey, they might be more in the large data center area. Some of them are
Yeah.
surprisingly large.
Yeah.
They have lots of storage needs, or they want all NVMe for lightning fast stuff. But then there's, I'm in the Midwest, so we have a lot more kind of rural school districts there where they're kind of broken up into smaller independent systems. And so they need smaller, lightweight stuff, right? And so they don't need, 100 terabytes of capacity. A lot of their stuff is now SaaS driven or cloud based, and they just need a small amount of on-prem where, hey, I just need like 10 terabytes or less, but I want it highly available. And so that's where these other product lines really shine on there and helps with those budget costs as well.
Now, I don't want to be rude, but are you interested in the business of those very, very small school organizations? Is that something that you are able to support?
Oh yeah, definitely. So, that's one thing too is we wanted to make sure that it doesn't matter if you buy the smallest gear, and you have 12 virtual machines, or you're buying our largest stuff and you have several hundred virtual machines. You're going to get that same experience. The 24/7 support, all of that stuff. So, yeah, we don't, again, kind of jabbing at all the competitors out there. We don't kind of set different levels, based on how much you spent with us.
Mhm. I mean, that's good to know because often one of those frustrations is as well when you're most in need of support because you have very limited resources,
Yep.
you're least likely to get the support because
Oh yeah.
you have the least to spend, and this is where it really, really matters as well.
Hmm.
There is, as you alluded to, a lot of schools have really quite sophisticated IT organizations here
Yep.
because of what the sort of education that they are providing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like lessons are no longer on, books and chalkboards anymore, right? I don't even know if schools have chalkboards anymore, right?
I don't
So,
know either.
so
I
like,
haven't been near one recently.
yeah, so they all require like smart boards, and,
Yeah,
every kid has like a Chromebook or a laptop. And so that infrastructure becomes kind of part of that core curriculum there, is having that solid infrastructure in place there.
yeah. Tell me a little bit about the frustrations that you know of that schools
Mhm.
have, the constraints that they're under.
Yep. So being that I travel around quite a bit and
Yeah.
talk to kind of different school districts, go to different trade shows related to kind of K-12 and things like that. A lot of common threads keep popping up. One of those is budgeting constraints for stuff, right? That leads to a number of different things. One, maybe we've skipped refreshing hardware for a couple cycles now, so it's getting a little long in the tooth there. But the other thing
Mhm.
it means is you typically have understaffed IT teams, right?
Yeah.
They might have 1 to 3 folks kind of managing everything in a school district. So they don't have the IT staff there to say, hey, all right, Bobby's dedicated to the Chromebook, Susie's our storage admin, and so on and so forth. So they have to become like Swiss Army knives, right? They have to
Mhm.
be able to do a bit of everything. So that's a
Yeah.
common thread that pops up over and over.
I guess as well, because if you're recruiting people who have to be on site,
Hmm.
if you've got a school in the Bay Area, then you'll probably be able to find someone local. If you're
Yep.
in, if you're in Tangent, Oregon, then
Yeah.
it's a slightly different matter.
Oh
There
yeah.
might not be highly qualified people local to you.
Yeah, and there's some school systems I talk to, which I don't know if I would do this as an act. They let some of the students actually help participate in managing the infrastructure. Those that are kind of in some of the computer courses there, but they do it right. So I mean,
I'm
when you're
only thinking
shorthanded,
I'm only thinking about when I was a student. I'd have
yeah,
loved that, but not in a good
oh yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah. It's like what, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, getting there, changing grades, things like that. But
Yeah, that's the
yeah,
least you could get up to. Yes,
yeah,
but you understand why, because
yeah.
there is a priority here. You've got
Yep.
to keep the lights on.
Yep, yep. And so, one thing is being able to automate a lot of those repetitive tasks, right? Instead of
Mhm.
just, again, because I'm limited in manpower, I've got to kind of set something up to ease life where I don't have to constantly manage it over and over again. And that kind of trails into, hey, if a school system, or could be a state or federal mandate where, hey, we've got to implement this, whatever this could be. It could be a student information system. It could be some kind of security system in place there. It takes a lot of time, and it takes, a lot of effort to kind of start deploying those. How can we ease that up, right? And then, of
Mhm.
course, high availability. I mean, if you build everything on top of sticks, you don't want it to just easily crumble apart there. And hey, now nobody's functioning because we build it poorly.
Mm.
Um, so those are kind of the common threads that keep popping up is hey, how can you help us deal with less staff, deal with less budget? Let's help automate things. I basically, they want something where they set it and forget it, and then they just deal with the kind of the class facing, faculty facing components there.
I guess you've also got to build something that is not vulnerable to cyber attacks either, if we're talking about availability.
Yep, exactly. That's always a big concern now is a lot of school systems, especially for like insurance purposes, they have to kind of validate that they have that. A year or two ago, security cameras were the big thing, right? We have to
Mhm.
build the infrastructure for having all these cameras in place and stuff. So having a product that's very flexible and can deal with that's key as well.
Mm. So tell me a little bit more about how all this works out and what you provide.
Yep. So what I'll do is I'll kind of go over, hey, why we how we kind of solve some of those, and then hey, let's just bring up the product and and
It's
and
just
see if it
yeah,
does
there you
that.
go.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
all waiting for the demo,
Nobody wants
Frank,
to
but
see slides,
we
right?
have to do this, but we're all
Yep.
waiting for the demo.
Yeah. So here, I'll put my sales hat on here for this, but the main thing is the simplicity of our product, right? So we know that we're not going to have the 3 times certified, seasoned IT admins managing every infrastructure. So um, we've designed a very intuitive interface. 3 clicks, you can do pretty much any task that you want to do, whether it's deploy new VMs, whether it's automate the self-healing. You'll find that you spend less time dealing with it. Um, Also, right out of the gate, everything is highly available. The storage is highly available. The whatever VMs we put on it are highly available. I don't have to configure it that way. It just does it as soon as I apply power to it.
Hmm.
And then, of course, that scalability, like we were talking about, the flexibility. We don't know what's going to change, in the education space in the next 3 or 4 years. And so I need to have an infrastructure that can grow as I need to. So with us, easily mix and match. It takes 20 minutes, and I've added capacity with no downtime. And then finally, the last part is, the budget constraints, right? By eliminating a lot of those vendors in that space, we're able to cut down that cost dramatically and deliver to me a much more superior product in the first place.
Well, the time's come, Frank, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Let's see how it actually works. You're going to do a live demo for us today of some of those tasks, some of those common tasks, so we can see how it actually works in practice.
Yep, exactly here. So, Tim, are you able to see this dashboard?
I am, yes.
All right, perfect, perfect. So this is a scale computing dashboard. Think of this as a replacement for vCenter, if that's kind of what you're commonly used to here. But what we've done is you're going to manage it all through a web interface. So I don't need any special tools. I don't need to set up a management system. Very easy to deploy. But up top, the gauges show you everything that happens cluster wide in real time. The resource gauges, they're color coded for fault tolerance, right? For N+1. So I don't have to do mathematics. I don't have to kind of do a wing and a prayer. I hope I can survive a host offline. These gauges, they'll turn oranges and reds and alert you well before you paint yourself into that corner.
Let's hope we don't see any of those in the next few minutes.
Yeah, yeah. Or maybe we do. Hey, it's all
Maybe we
about
do.
going live. Um, uh, these 3 boxes up here represent the physical host. So this is a 3 host cluster that I have. Again, I
Mhm.
built it that way for fault tolerance. Down here is where the virtual machines are. Group them together however you want to. It could be maybe by different departments. It could be by team members working on projects. It could be by specific application names, right? So that's a nice way to be able to sort the VMs instead of having this big long list I have to scroll through, as I
Mm.
can see everything that's related within here. Now, to create a VM, all I need to do is one, I can use a template and deploy a fully loaded virtual machine exactly the way I want, but that takes 4 seconds. Doesn't show you anything, right? So let's do it the long way, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm gonna hit the plus sign here. Tim, I'm going to use you as an example here, and I say, hey, this could be, Power School or something like that, one of those applications.
Mm,
Anything I want to be searchable in the filters, I can put in these descriptors here. Tags are these categories that I have. I can type a new one if I wanted to, or in my case, I know I've got one with my name, so I'm just going to throw it in my group so it's easy to find. Will it be a Windows server, a Linux server? Just curious because it'll mount the appropriate drivers for you here. Old-fashioned BIOS work fine. Do I want something newer? Do I need TPMs for encryption? Again, you mentioned, the security stuff. There's a lot of kind of prerequisites to have, those in place for drive encryption.
mhm.
What kind of horsepower? Let's give this guy maybe 16 gigs of RAM. Let's add maybe a 600 gig drive on it.
Yeah.
Heck, let's maybe give it a 2 terabyte drive for just keeping archive records around.
That's more my speed. Yeah.
Yeah. And then here you can upload ISOs right into the user interface and create a library. So that way I don't have to go tracking down software. So I'm going to make it server 22 here. And I hit the create button. That was it. That was the long way to build that virtual machine. If I come to the Frank category here, I can see there's our Tim demo. Everything looks good. Let's hit the power button. Now, if you've ever done this same task in VMware in Hyper-V, there's a lot of research that goes on before I do this. I got to find, hey, what data store do I have free space on? Hey, what host should I put this on?
Mm,
What is the RAID set on those disks? Don't need to worry about it here. It's all automated on the back end. So it'll intelligently place the storage throughout the cluster so it's highly available. I can lose 2, 3 hard drives all in the same school day, and there's zero data loss there. I can lose a complete node. VMs still continue to run, right? It's going to do that for you automatically. But it placed this VM on this first host because based on performance metrics it's watching, it said this host and these VMs, this is where it should run the best at. Again, I didn't think anything about that. It was all automatic there. So just to make sure this is a live VM, right here, get you to the console level of it so we can see, hey, let's tell it to go ahead and load Windows for us here. Again, we did it the long way instead of from a template there. But we've got a live running VM now. The main thing I always like showing people that are proficient in VMware is this camera icon right here. Snapshots, right? VMware can do snapshots, Hyper-V can do snapshots. You name the product, they can do snapshots. But all of those products have limits on what you can do with those snaps. So one of the limits, and I'll confess, I learned this the hard way, is you don't want to keep a snapshot around a very long time. It's going to chew up your data space.
mhm.
It'll eat up the data stores, and next thing you know, the data store gets full, and then oops, VMs start shutting down, right? And so you learn that the hard way. You put a policy in place to say, hey guys, if you take a snapshot, 3 days is probably about as long as we'll keep it. We got to delete it after that. Some people get risky and might do a week or two, but they're meant to be very temporary in time here. With our storage, I can take snapshots and leave them around for months and months. Maybe I want to leave them around for 6 months, 8 months. I can do that where I never could do that in VMware or Hyper-V. So that limitation off the table. The other limitation is what I'm doing right now, and that's taking too many of these snapshots. In VMware, I dare you to get 5 snapshots on a VM. If you do, make sure you stand by the help desk because they're going to start calling, wondering why it's so slow, right?
Mhm.
If you got the 7 or 8, ping that virtual machine. I bet you can't because it's probably frozen solid, right? And so we've got rid of that limitation as well. And now here's the crazy thing. If you want to, you can take over 5,000 snapshots on this virtual machine. So that's a far cry from 5 to 5,000, right? We've
Mm.
unlocked the potential of them as well. They're not a rewind button. Tim, let's say I want to update you to version Tim 2.0, right? I've got to do it this weekend, right? That's when nobody's in school, but I would love to be able to test this prior to actually doing it. So what I can do is I can come into my snapshots. I took 11 of them here. So there's all my goofy names, but I can choose any point in history, whether it was 2 minutes ago or whether it was 2 months ago. I can say, let's create a copy of Tim with all of his data exactly the way it was yesterday, right? 3 clicks and about 5 seconds. There it is. The way it was a couple days ago, a couple months ago, 6 months ago, right? I can do that in 5 seconds, right? So now people start going, oh man, this could help with ransomware prevention, right? So let's say this was our critical student database, and I'm using a backup product to back up my VMs, and I do it every night at midnight. I would love to have more recovery points than just that midnight one. So built right into the product. Again, we don't charge you a nickel more for all these features. Everything is included. Everything you see comes with the product here. But I can develop schedules to automate those snapshots. I don't want to sit around and click the camera all day. This is one that I created here. So if we look at this, it'll take a snapshot every 15 minutes of whatever VM I tell it to, right? That's a heck of a recovery window right there. But then I say, hey, delete it after an hour. I also do it hourly, keep it a full day, middle of the night, first of the week, first of the month. So make these stagger as much as you want, create the retention policy that you want. But now all I have to do is go, Tim, you're pretty important to me. I want to make sure that you're protected. So let's follow that critical demo, and I hit update. So right there, now this system is going to automatically do those every 15, every hour, so on and so forth. So in the event that ransomware encrypts this student database, I can come into a snapshot and go, hey, instead of telling the school board or management that we have to go back to midnight, I can say, hey, I've got a recovery point 3 minutes before the ransomware attack. Let me expand that. I really just need the live data on the 600 gig drive. I don't care about the old archive. So I can take just this disk from a snapshot, mount it back to the original VM, or I can choose any VM that lives on the cluster. Maybe I've got a system I keep around for recovery purposes. I hit that disk icon, and in 7 seconds, that drive is mounted. It's browsable. I can retrieve that data. No sweat. Didn't have to do it from a cloud instance or anything like that. Makes it very quick and easy there.
It strikes me that a lot of what you're doing here is organized so that if people have a limited amount of time, a little bit limited amount of resource to manage these things, then we're doing a lot of things to make sure that those activities are not compromised by that.
Yeah, yeah. You could click around this thing blindfolded and you're really not going to hurt anything within here, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing too is we went back to, talking about school districts that have limited IT staff, and, maybe, hey, if I'm in the middle of a farm in Ohio, a farm school in Ohio, I don't have a lot of these certified technicians floating around here, right? So
Hmm.
everything's developed to where you can get in here, much like a smartphone, click around, figure out what it is. I don't have to open up a 42-page document just to figure out what this icon is. It's very easy to pick it up and be confident in this product in probably 2 days' time.
Well, that's that. Yeah, that's interesting to. It's interesting to see, and it's interesting to see how it's actually working there, which I think will probably have given a lot of people a bit of confidence.
Yeah.
Because, of course, one of the problems with this is it's a big jump if you are going to completely change how you're running your IT, no matter how bad what
Yeah.
you've got is.
Yeah.
It's a big step to make into using something completely different, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, the other thing too is, I was kind of the same way, like early on in my IT career, right? I always called it a mouse jockey, right? I was a Windows admin. Don't
Yeah.
get me in front of the command line. If I got to type a bunch of these long strings that are case sensitive and everything, I'll absolutely hate it, right? And so when people think KVM, they think Linux, they think, oh, I'm going to be staring at a black screen with a cursor like they're in the Matrix or something for long periods of time. As you noticed, there was no command line here to do any of that stuff, right? We've skinned this to where anybody can pick this up. And actually, I think on our website, we've got videos of like maybe a 7 or 8 year old creating a virtual machine like I did here. So if you want your students, your elementary kid students to help you, feel free to do that as well. But
That's taking it to extremes, but
yeah,
I do take your point exactly. If
yeah.
people are watching this, Frank, and they
Hmm.
want to, and they do want to make that step, they recognize all these problems that we've set
Hmm.
out, and they're thinking this is something that we want to do. What do they do? What's the first step?
Yep. Well, the first step is, hey, let's learn more about scale, right? That's always the thing, right? Go out and do the research. Hit your guys' site, see what kind of articles, reviews there are. But I believe on the slides here, we actually have some links
Mhm.
that folks can visit. That'll have some of the success stories. We got video case studies of K-12s. Could be some in your state, in your area. You might be surprised who's around you running this because, I mean, the K-12 space is a huge, customer of ours, all these different schools. I know in the state that I live in, I know we've got more than probably 125 school districts just in this one state here, the one I cover. So plenty of other states, they're all grasping onto it as well. But yeah, we're going to provide.
It's always useful to be able to talk to someone, to talk to your peers, people who've been through the same thing as you, that have
Yeah,
experienced it, or at least
someone
learn
that's
about
not getting paid to say good things about it, right?
it.
That's the way I say it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Uh, Listen, Frank, that's been great. Thank you so much for taking us through that and explaining it to us. So, really appreciate you talking about it to us today.
Hey, anytime if you want to talk tech, just hit me up.
I will do. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes at the Register for putting this one on. If you want us to talk more about this isn't something we talk about very often, but it is huge and very important as well. Let us know, and we'll do some more of this. But meanwhile, thank you for watching. We hope you found something useful. If you have found something useful in this and the story carries on for you, let us know about it. We'd be really interested to find out. But for now, from me to Phillips, I'd like to say thanks for watching. See you soon. Goodbye.